let's go over another one called reciprocal function. We really won't be doing too much with this key graph, to be honest with you, but you will have some homework questions over it, so let's go over it. So let's graph it first. So we have 1 over x, which is just 1 divided by x. I'll hit graph. So here is our graph here. Now, a couple things with this one. When I go into my table here, I have an error right here at x equals 0, because at x equals 0, we have what is called an asymptote. We're going to deal a little bit with asymptotes when we go over exponential and logarithmic functions. But I'm going to put a dashed red line right here at x equals 0. Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and put some arrows on that because that's going to keep going forever. And then when I look at this graph, you can also see it's kind of going right here along this x-axis. And when I look at this table, as you go to one side, notice that this number here on the y is getting closer and closer to 0. Because we also have a horizontal asymptote right here at y equals 0. So another dashed line right here. At y equals 0. Okay. So on this here, the only whole numbers I have are -1, -1, and 1, 1. If you want to put a 2.5, you can do a 4 and 1/4 if you want, but I'm just going to do that 1, 1, and -1, -1. I have my 2 points right here. Okay, so this is going to be a really weird graph because now it's going to get closer and closer to those asymptotes. So as this one goes up, it's going to get closer to that asymptote, but not cross it, not go over that y-axis. And then this one's going to get closer and closer to this asymptote, but not cross it, not go over it. Same thing here. It's going to get closer to that vertical asymptote, and it's going to get closer to this horizontal asymptote, but not go over it. Okay, so this is what my graph looks like, those blue shapes. My domain is also going to be kind of funky here because of those asymptotes, and then my range will be 2. When I do my domain and go left to right, my leftmost is this blue arrow right here. But then as we keep going, now it's going to get closer and closer to this 0, but never approach it. Well, yes, it's approaching it. It's never going to touch it or cross it. So to 0. And this one will have a parenthesis because it's not going to include it. Then we will have the union. Once we pick our pencil up and go over that asymptote, now it's going right here on this side of 0 to infinity. And our range is actually identical. As I go from the bottom to the top here, first thing we get is -infinity, and we're going to keep going up, and then it's going to start getting closer to this horizontal asymptote at y equals 0, but it's going to stay below, right? It's going to stay completely negative. So we have -infinity to, I almost put -0, but to 0. Okay, and then the union, now it's going to hop over that horizontal asymptote. It's going to pick up on the positive side of 0, and then it's going to keep going up on that y. This one also has origin symmetry, because if you take your paper and you flip it upside down, that looks the exact same. And all of these here need an asterisk. As that graph gets moved up, down, left, right, it's going to change all of those. This one is probably one of the more confusing graphs and stuff that we're doing as far as these key functions go. But honestly, we're going to do the least amount with this one here. So don't stress too much about this one if you are very confused as to what I just did.